think this is where we are right now. We are fighting heroically, our armed forces and people, to defend our home. Now, of course, from the day one, our president said we would like this to stop. We are ready to negotiate. Negotiate does not mean to surrender. We are not ready to give up on either our dreams, on the territorial sovereignty or integrity. But we are ready to negotiate, even with the brutal enemy, in order to stop it. And we are asking all of our friends and allies to help us to, A, fight successfully, but also to put all the pressure so that Russia negotiates.
Secretary of State Blinken said this week that a simple withdrawal of troops by Russia won't meet the U.S. standard for lifting sanctions. Something more irreversible needs to happen here. What is he laying out here? What is the Ukrainian vision?
Well, I will let Secretary Blinken to say what he said. But for us, clearly, I mean, it's a brutal attack. We've lost people. Many of our cities are destroyed and still are being destroyed. We've lost 60 universities completely. I mean, they are erased from the. So we need this to stop. They need to stop and get out from Ukraine. But we also need to be talking about reparations, about the security guarantees and everything else. We need to know that this attack, which I want to remind, is not the first attack. Russia attacked us in 2013. Russia attacked us in 1918. So we know that the goal that Russia has in this now, as it used to have in the past, is to destroy Ukraine.
Ambassador, thank you for your time. As always, we'll be back in a moment.
Are you curious about who offers the best deals on top-rated Samsung, LG, and Sony TVs? The answer is surprising. It's not online, and it's not the warehouse clubs. The best deals on top-rated TVs are at Video Only. Check out the trade-in deals at Video Only. How about $500 for your old TV? Try doing that online. Before you buy that new TV, drop into Video Only. If you don't, you'll be sorry.
Hey, it's Otto, install manager at Car Toys. It's that time of year. Our 35th annual birthday bash sale is going on now. Get up to 50% off store-wide, including Apple CarPlay decks, remote start, speakers, subs, everything you need to customize your dream car. Plus, score free gear like backup cams and Sirius XM tuners. Hurry in or shop online at cartoys.com.
Upgrade your sound system. All subs from Alpine and Kicker are on sale. Plus, get up to 50% off speakers. Offer valid while supplies last.
Car Toys, a better way to go.
Paid for by government.com.
Have you heard? The United States Mint has issued the Morgan Silver Dollar for the first time in 100 years. Not only that, but they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 175,000 legal tender silver dollars were issued. These Morgan Silver Dollars are brand new, bright and shiny legal tender coins minted by the iconic Philadelphia Mint. Just call 1-800-571-6468 and you are guaranteed a new 99.9% pure silver Morgan dollar. The first time in history this has happened. But with limited quantities, you must call now to order. To learn more, call 1-800-571-6468. If you order now, you will receive a free collector bonus, a $25 value free with every order. Call 1-800-571-6468 now to secure your new Morgan Silver Dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-571-6468.
Medical Association and the Ad Council.
We turn now to another issue of increasing concern, that of the rising number of COVID cases, particularly in China and Europe. Our Liz Palmer reports from London.
Hong Kong is building vast isolation hospitals to house COVID patients. It's shut down businesses, beaches, and public transport. But even so, currently has the highest COVID mortality rate on Earth, due largely to unvaccinated old people. Right next door, mainland China is fighting to stave off disaster. It kept COVID largely at bay for more than 2 years, with draconian lockdowns, electronic monitoring, and mandatory testing. But now, Omicron has taken hold. China has just reported its first deaths in more than a year, along with almost 2,000 new cases. 37 million Chinese are currently under lockdown, and about 50% of people over 80, 17 million of them, have not been fully vaccinated. Europe, too, has seen a surge in infections. The week Britain
Turn left
dropped
on 17th
all
Street
COVID restrictions,
Northeast.
even tests for arriving travelers hospital wards began to fill up.
We're starting to see an increase in patients who need to be admitted and treated for coronavirus.
The good news is the death rate hasn't gone up, and the surge does seem to have peaked. And finally,
in 1.4 miles,
in Kharkiv,
turn right on
Ukraine,
Mission
where,
Street
in
Southeast.
spite of the war, doctors kept on treating their COVID patients and set up a bomb shelter in the basement, just in case. It's now just over 2 years since the WHO declared COVID a pandemic. And this week, they reminded us that in their estimation, we're only about halfway through. Margaret?
Elizabeth Palmer in London. Thank you. We're joined now by former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He's also a Pfizer board member, and he joins us from Westport, Connecticut. Good morning to you, Doctor. I even tripped up on your name. My goodness, I haven't seen you in a few weeks. And now I just need to get your perspective on what BA2, this new variant, means. Should we be concerned about a wave?
Well, look, I don't think we're going to see a big wave of infection, but we're going to see some uptick from where we are right now. Right now, we're at very low levels of infection. We have 9 cases per 100,000 people per day. Those are levels that we haven't seen since last June. There are about 20,000 people currently hospitalized. And I think we're going to continue to see low levels of infection through the summer. But before we get there, we're probably going to see some tick up of infection like the Europeans are seeing right now. Maybe not as pronounced, and there are indications that the UK is already peaking, but some increase in infections. And that's a result of BA2, which is probably 30 to 50% more transmissible than the Omicron variant that became prevalent here, as well as the lifting of mitigation. People are going out more, they're interacting more, and some declining immunity from people who were boosted a long time ago or infected a long time ago. We're relying on that immunity, and that immunity isn't as pronounced right now. So we are going to see an increase in infection. I think this is going to be a real test of whether or not we're able to live some semblance of normalcy and not reach back to the kind of mitigation that we relied on in the past, and I don't think we'll be doing that, while still protecting the vulnerable. And so far right now, I don't know that we're taking all the steps we need to be taking to protect vulnerable people to weather this bump and potentially another surge heading into next fall.
You said if you were vaccinated a long time ago, Mr. Borla, the CEO of Pfizer, was on this program last week and said immunity starts to wane 4 months after your injection. A lot of us are right there right now. How long do we wait to get a booster? Another dose hasn't been authorized for wide use yet.
Yeah, look, the data that's coming out shows that the protection from the vaccine, particularly 3 doses of the vaccine, but even 2 doses of the vaccine, is substantial and durable if you're talking about protection against severe disease and hospitalization. And there's been some recent studies really supporting this. But in terms of protection from symptomatic disease and from infection, that does start to wane more immediately because that's dependent upon circulating antibodies, which after a period of time start to decline and aren't as prominent in your blood. I think this is really a 6-month vaccine in terms of providing really meaningful protection against symptomatic disease and infection. And this is likely to become an annualized vaccine for the majority of Americans. I think for those who are vulnerable, you should think about getting a shot every 6 months while we're in a high prevalent environment. And in fact, the shots are authorized for that use. For people who are immunocompromised, there is authorization right now for a 4th booster.
Pfizer has applied for a booster for people 65 and over, Moderna more widely. So do generally healthy adults need to get this too, or just the immunocompromised?
Yeah, I think it also depends on what the environment is. If we're in a low prevalent environment, as we're likely to be this summer,
use the right
I think
2
most
lanes to turn
Americans
right.
who had 3 doses of vaccine will have sufficient protection going through the summer. We don't, after all, get a flu vaccine in the summertime, even though the flu vaccine only affords about 6 months of protection because the flu season only lasts about 6 months through the fall and the winter. So you don't worry about contracting a respiratory pathogen in the summertime. And I think the risk is going to be pretty low this summer. I think after we have this bump in infection, we're going to get down to low levels. Heading into the fall, I suspect a lot of Americans will want to get another vaccine. Some people are going to call it a 4th booster. I think it's heading towards this vaccine becoming an annualized vaccine, at least for the foreseeable future, until we really understand the epidemiology of this disease and understand whether this coronavirus starts to recede into the background, like the 4 circulating strains of coronavirus that we've become accustomed to.
Turn left on High Street Southeast.
I mean, you've talked about this for so long, the risk of becoming this bifurcated society where it's those who can go out and those who are compromised or worried about infecting family members. I have small children under 5 who are not vaccinated, so I would put myself in that category. But now there's a cost because all the health restrictions are out. So you are choosing to isolate yourself if you are taking health restrictions. What is a health, like the average person, what should they do? Should they still be
Пока
wearing
прямо
masks?
написано.
Look, I think if you're vulnerable, if you're someone who's very vulnerable to this infection, in a high prevalence environment, or in an environment, if you're going into a setting that's high risk, a confined space, indoors, there are things you can do to protect yourself in that setting. One-way masking does work, even if everyone else isn't wearing a mask. If you're wearing a high-quality mask, you're going to get a good degree of protection from that. A lot of people continue to wear masks. There's also a lot of therapeutics available now, more than we had, better tools than we had earlier in this pandemic. I think understanding how you can get access to those is important.
Turn right.
Dr. Gottlieb, thank you for your time today. We'll be right back. Images from the war in Ukraine continue to dominate hearts and minds around the world. One that's gotten increasingly familiar is that of the defiant and besieged president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, encouraging Ukrainians, lobbying for help, and pleading with Putin to stop.
Turn left
Last
on High
week,
Street
Zelensky took his
Southeast.
message to
Then
Canada,
turn right on
to
Bush
the
Street
U.S. Congress,
Southeast.
and plans to address the people of Israel today.
Почему мы не
Saturday, he
едем?
spoke to Switzerland, a country that stayed neutral in World War II, but was one of the first to condemn the Russian invasion and express support for Ukraine. Translated in English, he said, "It is impossible to stay away from the fact that in the 21st century, in the heart of Europe, hundreds of rockets and bombs are flying at
Turn right on
peaceful
Bush Street
cities.
Southeast.
It is impossible to stay away when the army of the world's largest state, albeit only in size, directs all
In
its
700
deadly
feet,
potential to
turn left on
destroy
Commercial
us,
Street
to destroy
Southeast.
hospitals,
Then turn right.
ordinary schools, churches, universities, maternity hospitals, residential areas. It is impossible to be indifferent when children are killed. The role of a journalist is to find facts and report the truth, and above all, stay fair and neutral. But much like Switzerland, we find ourselves agreeing with Volodymyr Zelensky that some facts are so horrific that equivalency is both false and morally wrong. Above all else, it is most important to be truthful.
Turn left on Commercial Street Southeast. Then use the right lane to turn right on Owen Street South.
Austin, Chinese ambassador to the U.S. Qin Gang, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, Ukraine's ambassador to the United States Oksana Markarova, and former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb. The executive producer
Use
of
the
Face
right
the
lane to
Nation
turn
is
right
Mary
on Owen
Hager.
Street
This
South.
broadcast was directed by Shelley Schwartz. Face the
Как ты же
Nation
собралась
originates from
заворачивать?
CBS News in Washington. For more Face the Nation, we're
Ну,
online
вообще да.
at facethenation.com. Follow Face the Nation and CBS
Уже
Radio
не
News on
свернем здесь.
Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Что, ты через 3 ряда
Face the
собралась
Nation's also
поворачивать?
on our digital network, CBSN, at 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern Time every Sunday.
No word in the English language is less convincing.
Use the right lane to turn right. Then turn right.
Magic tattoos on our first date. Sure, we'll probably stay together.
Probably?
Use the right lane to turn right. Then turn right on Saginaw Street South.
Can probably swim.
You should wait 30 minutes.
Okay, tell me what to do. Gated ball!
Что ты чешешь?